Hello there and welcome to the Irish Film London podcast season 2. I'm your host Niamh Brannigan and I am joined by Jerry Maguire. How are you today, Jerry?
Not gonna lie, Niamh, sort of tired.
I can imagine so because it's been a big week for us. So this is going out on Friday and this past Monday we have released our programme for our November festival.
Yes, we have.
Which is so exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I think I'm really proud of what our team has done this year. It's a really good program, and I'm not on the socials as much as you might be, but you were telling me it's got a bit of a. You think it's got a good reception, right?
Yeah, it's. I think everyone really looks forward to it every year because it's created such a great kind of audience every year. Because every year it just gets bigger and better, you know. And talk about bigger and better. I mean, our opening gala is in the View in Leicester Square.
Yeah, it is.
Does it get bigger and better than that?
I mean, I don't think it does. Yeah. I mean, shall I do a wee program overview for people?
Yeah, let's do like a little bit this week and then we can do a little bit next week as well for people.
This makes sense.
Okay.
I want this to be about the good interviews that we've got this week.
Exactly.
And like a program in advertisement thing. Just go to our website, guys.
Exactly.
Opening gala, Leicester Square, Wednesday 16th of November. We're really, really proud to have a preview screening of Frank Berry's new film Aisha. Aisha stars Letitia Wright in the titular role and Josh O'Connor, whose Irish accent is convincing, guys.
Very impressive, I have to say. As a dub, I was very impressed by the trailer now. I've only seen the trailer, so I'm very excited to see this film. We've got it before it comes out in the cinema. We're in this massive screen in Leicester Square. And tickets are already selling.
Tickets are selling for it. Yeah, it's one of the shows out of this big old program that's actually selling really well. I'm really happy about that because there's a lot of them to go. So yeah, it's really good. And that's our opening gala. We've never been in Leicester Square before. I'm really, really pleased that we've got like a home in the West End for Irish film because I think that's where it deserves to be. But it's quite funny. Like, I'm excited about Aisha. I'm excited about what it means to have a film which, if you don't know about Aisha is an asylum seeker who comes to Dublin and she ends up in the direct provision system. And Frank Berry is a filmmaker whose films are all about sort of social issues. Sometimes he's referred to as an Irish Ken Loach, although I think that is a little bit reductive. But it's quite exciting to have a film in the programme which is talking about a really important issue, you know, and we were proud to have it as our opening gala. But it's so interesting because a festival that's on in Ireland almost at the same time as us is the Cork International Film Festival, a very big festival with a huge programme, much bigger than ours. It's international in focus rather than just Irish, and their opening gala is Aisha. So that's pretty cool, you know. Great minds think alike, perhaps. And
definitely, and as well, I think as well, because sometimes because our audiences go across Ireland and England. Yeah. If you're in Ireland and you don't get over to London for the festival, maybe you might be near Cork, or if you're in London and you haven't gotten home for any Irish festivals, then that kind of crossover is always really great. And I think as well, another really cool kind of element to the festival that we haven't really had before necessarily for our November festival is there'll be a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of online options as well.
Yeah, so there's online options for this festival. So, you know, I think a lot of places have kind of done away with the online thing. We are trying to hang on and do as much of it as we can for as long as possible. It's a funny thing with online, like, when people buy tickets for your cinema event, you can measure how many of them there are, and if you get them to fill in a little feedback form at the end, then you can get a little bit more information from them. But the nice thing about online in a way is that you know where people are. You know, you've got a lot more data, and it's so interesting to me as somebody who makes programs of work for people to know that there's an audience for this stuff that's way far outside London. We do access people from all over the UK and Ireland and the US and Germany. A lot of people from Germany access our content.
What's up, Germany?
Yeah, and Australia and lots of different places like this. And it's so interesting, and it's so nice to be able to provide opportunities for people to see this stuff, because obviously a lot of them are not going to come to London for a one-off screening, you know. So that's dead nice. So yeah, there's a fair bit of stuff available online this year as well, and I do encourage people to check it all out.
Definitely. And I even found I was at Galway during the summer, and I think this kind of goes for a lot of people as well. You go and you book one thing, you might miss another thing, or I mean, you might not have the funds for everything, and you know, I think it's always a cool option as well to have it online, and maybe you can, because there's kind of a window, you know, that you can watch it, and so you might miss everything, you know. And then our closing gala is on in the Riverside Studios, which is a lovely place to finish up.
It is, yeah. So Riverside is where we had a load of stuff last year, and we still have a lot of screenings in there this year. And what we did last year was we opened our festival at Riverside with an Irish language film called Aract, which was by a production company in Ireland called Macala. Macala have produced a new Irish language comedy this year called Róise agus Frank, and that's the one that's closing the festival this year in Riverside again on Sunday the 20th of November at 8 p.m. It's been out in Ireland, it's got great reviews. We're really, really happy that we have what we think is going to be the UK premiere of this new Irish film. We're dead happy to be closing the festival with an Irish language film, and yeah, we're really, really excited. I think with a closing film, you have to try and decide what tone you want to close the festival with, and we're quite happy really to be closing the festival with a happy film, you know.
Absolutely. I think it's a great choice. It's a really kind of lovely feel-good film, which I hope people will get a sense of today listening to this podcast all about Róise agus Frank. And also obviously needs, like, I don't even really need to say it, but for anyone who's going to be attending throughout all of these amazing films and shorts and workshops and talks and Q&As and everything, there'll be chats, there'll be options to network, there'll be drinks being had, so definitely check out the programme and schedule in what you can, because there's just so much on offer. I just think it's such a great program this year, and I think everyone's going to really, really enjoy it.
I hope so, yeah. So irishfilmlondon.com for your tickets. Everything's on sale right now. Have a look at it. Yeah, there's some really good stuff in there. I want to give a little plug to another event that we're sort of involved with, but it's not a festival event. You know, there's always so many films around that they're either out at the wrong time when we can't get them in the festival, or you can't do partnership screenings with them and stuff like that. One film that I was chasing for ages to try and get in the festival this year is a brilliant documentary by Alison Miller called Lyra. It's the story of Lyra McKee, the journalist who unfortunately was shot and killed in Derry a few years ago. That's coming out at the start of November, and we're doing a partner screening for that at the Bertha Dock House in Bloomsbury. I believe Alison's going to be there. I'm going to be there to interview her if she's there. Must check all this in advance, but I believe that's the case. And yeah, come down to that if you're in London. It'll be great crack. I've seen Lyra. I love it. It's such a beautiful wee way to remember Lyra and what her life meant and everything. And I noticed when I looked on the Dock House website this evening in preparation for chatting about it, that it's one of 3 Irish films that's playing at Bertha Dock House in the next couple of weeks. So there's The Ghost of Richard Harris, which is of course a portrait of the great actor Richard Harris by the director Adrian Sibley, and there is our guest from the last episode, Kath Ferguson, and her film Nothing Compares, which is screening there for the next few weeks, we hope. So yeah, a trio, like a trilogy of Irish films. You could probably do an all-dayer at the Bertha Dock House.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so great. I mean, I just think that's such an amazing reflection on our films, our film industry, like documentary or not, you know what I mean? And especially then as well, Irish language, which is just so brilliant. So, and also it shows that our listeners that we're not just even doing our festival, we're constantly doing screenings and online stuff, and so IFL is kind of constantly at work. No rest for the wicked. But one thing as well that's on this weekend is the Kerry Film Festival is going to be be starting this weekend, so loads of great films in that festival as well, of course. And then, I mean, it's just really festival season, isn't it? You've got Still Voices in Longford, you've got Cork coming up, you've got the Richard Harris then as well in Limerick.
Yes, of course.
So it will just be non-stop, so we'll be having loads to chat about in the next coming weeks, but we'll go back over the programme again in our next podcast. But for now, I hope that everyone enjoys this interview for the film Róise agus Frank. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Niamh.
If you're part of the regular Irish Film London audience or want to get more from your experience, consider joining our growing family of members for a range of exciting benefits. Irish Film London is a non-for-profit organisation. Our mission is to promote the best new Irish film to audiences all over the UK, and with the help of this podcast, the world. If you become a festival friend or a festival champion, you get perks like discounted tickets for films and events, free access to Irish Film from Home films, and invites to networking events, and so much more. So check it out now. Hello and welcome to the Irish Film London podcast. I'm delighted to have writers and directors Rachael Moriarty, Peter Murphy, and also Róise herself, Bríd Neachtain, on with me today to chat about their gorgeous new film, Róise agus Frank. So thank you so much, guys, for coming on and taking the time to chat to me today.
Thanks for having us, Niamh.
Thank you, Niamh.
Not at all. So first of all, congratulations on a really beautiful film, and of course of all of the awards that have come along with it. It's gotten Best Ensemble at the Dublin International Film Festival, Best Film, Director and Actress at the Stockholm Film Festival, and just scooping up audience award winners at both the Santa Barbara and the Sonoma International Film Festivals as well, which is just fabulous news, and just especially for an Irish language film, it's just like, go on, it's just brilliant. It's just such great news. So I always love kind of starting with going right back, if that's okay. So I'd love to kind of chat about how the kind of Rachael and Peter duo came about.
That is going right back.
I know.
Let's go right back, terrifyingly back in to the late 80s. Yeah, we met in college. We started working together in college, and you know, the usual thing of making stuff in college. Not a huge amount. I mean, we kind of worked on society projects and stuff. We did communications in DCU, which was kind of probably not as practical as say DIT would have been or Dunleary. So we kind of had to find ways to do stuff. We set up a TV channel when we were there, and we did stuff like that. So we did start doing kind of film work together there, and then we just stuck at it and made, you know, 5 shorts over the years as unemployed filmmakers and all of that. And then as we continued working separately in television, we kept on doing it.
I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it, I guess.
You get used to a process, I think.
Yeah.
That process can be anything. I mean, it just depends. I think when you're younger, you find a way of writing or you find a way of doing things. And a lot of the time it's accidental or happenstance. And and you just kind of keep going. And I think a lot of the people who continue to make short films are, you know, you kind of have to just stick at it. And that's kind of, I suppose, what we did, as we kind of stuck at it and kept writing together.
And I think something we'd say, Rachel, like we would have seen, obviously we've made shorts going right back to the 90s, and you do see lots of people kind of drift away from it and not stick at it because it's tough. And I do think being a partnership has helped, like working with someone, writing with someone, directing with someone. It's sort of, you know, because you get so many people, you know, you get rejection letters, you get stuff that doesn't work. I've kind of been able to share that pain.
Yeah, the support, I can imagine.
I think it's great. And also, I think it has helped us hone our writing skills working as a team as well, because we say this a lot to people, we're very brutal with each other's writing, because you know someone down the line is going to be, there's no points us going, you know, within reason, you know, within the realm of politeness, but you kind of have to you have to accept that it's going to get torn apart at so many stages, that if we're doing it from the start, kind of helps a little bit. And I think that is, for that reason, it has made it a little bit easier to be able to pick up the phone and go, we got turned down, or that's doing well, or whatever it might be. But that is definitely, I think, helped us keep it going. Obviously we work in TV independently, and we really enjoy that, and we do a lot of TV work. But from the point of view of the drama, we only do together, and that has definitely helped, I think.
Yeah, and having those shared experiences then, for sure. So the film was funded by TG Ceathair and Screen Ireland and BAI as part of the Cine 4 scheme, which is was set up to produce feature-length original films in Irish, which I just think is so important. And so many other amazing films have come out of that scheme. So going back, I guess even actually before asking how did you start with the kind of applying for the scheme and everything, where did the inspiration of Róise agus Frank kind of begin? Where was it birthed?
I suppose as we're saying there, we have a writing process where we'd have a lot of things. We'll be talking about different ideas. What if this? What if that? Some things that are awful ideas and quickly get discounted, some that live a little bit longer but go nowhere, and then some that kind of stick with you. And I suppose the idea of loss and grief, we wanted to write something about that. We wanted to write something that was very authentic, I suppose. We've often heard the story of people with, a robin returns, or you get a sign from the universe. We were kind of soaking up, I suppose, stories and experiences around grief, and the idea of a woman who believes her husband has come back as a dog was a very notional thing. It was a very vague, one of those things that you kind of slightly develop and throw out. And really it was seeing the path ahead for it coming to screen that then kicked it into development and into a script and something that we could sustain. I mean, you need an idea that you're going to be able to live with and defend creatively for a few years ahead. So it was one that it just stuck in our minds. But you're right. Then the scheme was a very helpful catalyst for bringing it to a script stage.
Yeah, and what was that kind of process like then? Was it did you kind of have the guts of the script kind of all ready to go, or was it then the scheme first and then?
We did nothing beyond what Rachael was talking about. We just literally had, so when the Cine Ceathair scheme appeared, we said that idea that has never gone beyond that sort of germ of an idea. Let's work that one up. That feels like it could fit, because we would have talked a lot about how it needs to feel like it makes sense as Gaeilge, that it doesn't feel like, oh, here's a script they had under the bed that they nearly got funded before, that they've just changed to location a little bit. It needed to feel like it could work and make sense in a setting where people spoke Irish. And we really felt straight away, we thought that would be makeable there, and will work there. So we wrote up a treatment. So we hadn't even a treatment. We'd nothing written beyond. It really was a conversation. That we would have had a thought, So we wrote it up as a treatment, sent it in film, and in fairness to TG Ceathair, they really committed to making this happen quickly. They funded development really nicely. They gave 25,000 to, I think, 5 teams to write. So it was a really nice chunk of money that meant we were able to sit down, go into a room for 6 weeks, 9 to 5, do it like a real job and do nothing else, clear the decks and write the script, and then send the script in. So the process was really streamlined from that point of view. So the treatment went in, they accepted it, we wrote the script, and then by the following, we started all that end of 2018, and by I think spring, maybe May or something of 2019, we were greenlit. So from that point of view, it was a remarkable. I think they achieved something brilliant there in terms of getting people's kind of creative juices flowing quickly and making stuff happen fast, because that can be very frustrating, as anyone listening probably knows, that whole thing of, trying to get finance in place, and those steps can take so long. This was a really refreshingly fast process.
Absolutely. I can only imagine the momentum to keep that momentum, completely. Definitely, yeah.
Creatively, the character of Róise was probably how we developed that thought into a script. And we always, Róise was written for Bríd. We always knew that we wanted Bríd to be Róise. That was an incredibly helpful thing in the creative process, because while we were writing the script, we knew we would be trusting somebody who would be able to do it, who would be able to go on this journey and would be able to bring that character to the screen. So that was a different thing for us. We've never written a script before where we knew who that person was and knew who that central character was. And again, that speaks to the scheme itself facilitating people, that we were able to make. I mean, in the real world, a lot of the time you can't make that decision where you're saying, this is the person we want to play the role, this is who we're writing it for. To be able to carry that through was a real pleasure, I think, and that shows that speed of getting from script to screen kind of made that possible too.
Amazing. Yeah, that's such a pleasure to be able to have that person in your mind throughout the whole process. So I guess obviously it's an Irish language film, so I'd love to know kind of everyone's relationship and history with Irish language itself. So Bríd, what's kind of the relationship with the Irish language yourself?
Well, I'm a native Irish speaker. I come from the Connemara Gaeilge of Rossmuck. I was brought up there. I went to boarding school in Spiddle, and Irish is really important to me. I love working in Irish, whether it's on stage or on screen, and it was just a huge honour and a huge compliment to be involved with Rachael and Peter, and and it's wonderful, as they were saying, it's wonderful that T.G. Carr had that vision, to say we can tell our stories in the Irish as good as any other language, and we're proving that we can do that.
Absolutely. And what about Peter and Rachael? What about yourselves? Has Irish been kind of in the household for you guys growing up, or did you have to revisit it, or?
Well, my dad is from North Kerry, and his father was an extreme nationalist who made a mini Gaeltacht in their house when he was growing up. And then when I was a teenager, I was sent to an all-Irish secondary school. So I went to school through Irish. And I would share what Bríd is saying there, in that I always felt very proud to speak Irish, always loved the language, and this was just a complete joy and pleasure to be able to make something through Irish, and also to feel that we're making something. I know a lot of people who aren't confident Irish speakers, but who got great pleasure from watching Róise agus Frank, because they had enough to feel at home and familiar with the language. They're not going to start a conversation with you in Irish, but they know enough and they have a feeling for it, and they understand the rhythms, and they understand an awful lot more than they probably thought they did. So I think that was a real pleasure. I don't expect that everybody suddenly decides to go back to Rang na Gaeilge because there's an Irish language cinema way.
I think a few actors will be.
Possibly.
And I'm the one who did go back to Rang na Gaeilge, because that's my background, is more traditional school Irish. I would have been decent at Irish in school, but not fantastic. I'm certainly not fluent in the language. I went into Connemara Gaeilge on Harcourt Street and up to Glencolmkill in advance of it to sort of improve it. And amazingly now, at the moment, I'm actually working in Clorach Gaeilge in RTE on Scannels. So I think what I discovered is, and I think some of the crew would have agreed, there's an awful lot more within us from those 14 long years spent learning it. Obviously, we have a complex relationship with the language, but what I loved on the shoot was that we're all levels. Yeah. Obviously, there were people, native speakers, there were fluent speakers, there were people who had, I think my Irish is certainly decent, who would have a very good understanding and ability to operate in it. And then there were people who were just enthusiastic to kind of, include bits and try and work. Like Mike, our first, was very enthusiastic in small things like because obviously it's hard to run a fully Irish language shoot in Ireland, because if you insert a few people who don't have any, then English almost automatically becomes a language that people start to use. So it's just having a scenario where the language is kind of loved and respected, and I think we achieved that. That's kind of important without it feeling like, heavy or school or anything like that, but that there was just actually, there can be a level of bilingualism there, which I think Irish people are more comfortable with than they realize,
Definitely. And as you said, like, I think it's a massive thing to do. Confidence is a massive thing to do with it. I think like that we did it for so long. It's definitely in there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I even really felt myself watching it watching it back of, you know, I didn't have to actually look at the subtitles as much as I thought I would, you know, and like that, yeah, it's just the confidence and just the encouragement as well, I think. And I think the explosion now of Irish language films, not that they always haven't been around, but kind of just the how more recognized, not even popular, more recognized that they're getting. I think a lot more people are gonna kind of go, oh yeah, I am well able to converse or even watch and not necessarily be staring at the subtitles the whole time, you know. So
and what is kind of a thrill, and we've all myself and Rachel were Santa Barbara, and myself and Bríd were in Sonoma, and I've just come back from Port Townsend near Seattle, where we won the Audience Award again. And the really American audiences who we would traditionally have thought, oh, they don't like subtitles or they find it weird, they've really responded. They're fascinated and excited by a language that they're not familiar with, but a country that they have a big connection with. So that to see they're kind of thrilled by this idea that it exists, was, you know, that Bríd is a native speaker, that Ruan, who plays the kids in it, like there's a lot of native speakers in it. It's not kind of an academic language they've necessarily learned for a movie. These are people who speak it. It's their language. So they've really responded to that amazingly, I think, and that's been quite a thrill, actually.
That's very special, yeah, because I think it's kind of getting the, you know, the praise of your own, you know, at home, but then for people who aren't, you know, are really not necessarily, they are connected in a way, but, you know, are so far away from it, to still have it just shows how much heart there is in this film, which I just think is one of the most important things about the film, is the heart that's in it. But we do have to talk about Frank. I am dying to talk about Frank. How the casting process, I need to know about. How did we know now that you had Bríd in mind, but how did you go about, because very ambitious, you know, they say not to work with animals and babies, and you did both. So how did you go about finding Frank, the dog? Rachel, what do you think?
We, looking back, I think we probably should have thought about this more when we were writing it, because we did write lots for the dog to do without, we were thinking, well, Bríd can do that. Yeah. That's great. That's a hard emotional turn. Bríd will do that. But we didn't actually think, how is a dog going to do that? So anyway, probably our focus should have been more on, can a dog really do that? But when we started the process, we talked to people in Ireland. It was a very special role in that a dog needed to be able to do a lot. There were so many boxes that had to be ticked with the dog. We also were fussy. We wanted the dog to be somebody that Róise could believably think was her husband, and without being, you know, I don't want to sound prejudiced here, but I never saw a Jack Russell coming back and being Frank. So yeah, I mean,
it's the spirit animal. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't want it to be like we were kind of going on like a German Shepherd. Would he even come back as an Alsatian or a German Shepherd or a Latin? Camp. We were very picky, despite the fact that we had no idea whether we could get. I think at some point we even discussed, are we doing CGI? Would we have to do CGI? Oh, that's not going to be possible, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, so we did look around, and I mean, we were looking for a believability for Róise's character. You know, it had to be a dog that Róise's character could look at and you know, see as not a dog. That had to work. So we ended up going to an animal specialist in the UK. They read the script, they broke down the script, and they essentially said there was one dog really that could do it. So Peter and I flew over to meet Barley for lunch.
The Cotswolds.
For lunch, and Barley showed us a few of his skills. He did his reading, and he was great. I mean, he was great. He was just an amazingly trained animal, a really fantastic looking animal, able to do everything, and a kind of, I think you would agree, Bríd, a thorough professional on set, right?
I was going to ask, was he a bit of a diva, Bríd, but was he okay?
No, he was fantastic. It's what you said earlier, never work with children or animals, you know, and that was, I remember my first day of shoot was, I think we were shooting, as you know, we shoot out a sequence and stuff, and it was very specific with the dog. I'm going, I don't know how he's going to react. You know, with another actor, you can run a scene before, you can say, oh, right, I think I'm going this way with this. And no idea what he was going to do, where he was going to do. But he hit the mark all the time. We used to joke, Killian and Lorcan and myself say, he hits the mark better than some actors that we worked with. You know?
He just has the most incredibly beautiful, like expressive face. He really, really does. It was absolutely nailed. And I love that you met for a lunch. I think
mean,
that's fabulous.
and it is like we're always at pains to point out what was really reassuring going over for lunch as well, meeting Jill and Ash, who came over. Ash was who came over and worked with Barley when he was over here. But there was that real sense straight away. They made it very clear that all their dogs are rescue animals who are then fostered to families, basically given to families. So they said they want their dogs to have a normal pet's life. So they exist. He absolutely lives with its family separate to. They're not a film family or anything like that. They're just a family that own Barley basically. And he just heads off every now and then. He heads off to make movies, but for the rest of the time, he's living a dog's life. And stuff like they said, if he goes over, he has to stay in a house. They don't do kennels, and he has to go over with a companion dog because they get upset if they go on their own. So it was a really we were able to kind of relax and go, they're really going to take care of Barley. And, I know it sounds like it was really important to us that Barley has a positive, that's a good experience for the dog, because it's hard to know, if you've never worked with, you're kind of relying so much on them telling you what's right, what's wrong, what you can do and what you can't do. You've got to trust them. And they were magnificent. I mean, I think you probably found that, Bríd. You worked a lot with Ashley, who was Barley's handler. And I think he was brilliant to communicate and work with, wasn't he?
Oh, he was fantastic. Yeah, he'd tell you exactly, this is what you need to do. And, we'd rehearse even before you were setting up and stuff. And then by the time we got to shoot, I was comfortable. I was lucky, I suppose, that I'm comfortable with dogs as well. You know what I mean? Because as I know some actors that are really terrified of dogs, but I was comfortable with them. But the strange thing about, he was such a working dog, and he was so focused that he would never, he never kind of slobber over you. I remember one day that it hasn't made the movie, but I was putting the collar around his neck, and I wanted him to look at me. This was before we were shooting, and I wanted him to look at me to get that. And he looked left, he looked right, he looked up, he looked down. Never. And I thought, oh my God, that's such amazing, because other dogs would be, their face. But he was such. The only time he had a bit of a wobbler was with the windmills. Remember? We were shooting the outside, and they said if he hears anything, he's gone, and he was, and we went, oh, thanks be to God.
There's a bit of madness in him. Yeah, they were like literally wind turbines.
It was 2 miles away over. It was an actual dog. Yeah.
And he just took off across the pitch, barking like crazy, and did the classic dog thing. Went fully across the pitch, and then just turned around all happy with himself. He'd shown those windmills, and Ash was going, what? I said, I just nothing I can do. If he sees windmills, he's gone. Yeah.
He broke character. He
certainly did.
In a big way.
Well, as we were saying, they say not to work with animals and children, but you did both. And you had every generation in here, from babies to primary school kids to nursing, to the scene in the nursing home. So what was it like, I guess, working with that kind of scale of a cast? Because you had kind of big shots in there between the hurling match and even just like in the primary school, and then just all of these little individual characters with their own kind of storylines as well. What was that like, Rachael?
I think we always wanted it to feel like a real community. So we wanted to have, exactly as you're saying, Niamh, all those different ages represented. And I mean, the story of Róise and Frank is it is a woman who was split from a community. Not, she lost an awful lot when Frank went, not just him, but everything around her. So we were very keen that we would create that community, and we were very lucky in that we found so many talented people in Gaeilge, Róise, in Anrine and Tanafobal, where there's a very strong tradition of local drama. So there were lots of people who were able to bring that wholeness, I suppose, to the screen. And I think our professional or actors, I suppose, worked really well with them, with the newcomers and with the people who would have done, who would not have had screen appearances before. So it all knitted together very well, I think, and we were very lucky to find all those people. And it was ambitious. And one of the things I remember somebody saying to me about the Cine Cahir scheme was, well, they'll make 2 films and they'll run out of actors. Because it is a small group of people in a minority language. But I think I was really proud to see that we could actually find plenty of people to create that sense of community. But we did, I mean, I think we were quite lucky. Would you say so, Peter, in the local casting and the
I mean, I was going to say, luck is definitely a huge part of it. Everything that went right, like, you know, you write things into it, like, you know, you write a baby into it, quite a significant role throughout it, and you just think, well, we'll get one somewhere. I like, it's a tricky enough thing to find, obviously. And Claire O'Connor, who is an All-Ireland camogie winner with Wexford, playing our trainer and also coordinated all of the hurling for us. She was invaluable. And she also turned around and said, oh yeah, someone said you're looking for a toddler. Keela is my new daughter, and she said she just goes to anyone. She's great. So she also handed over her baby daughter to be in the film, and she was great fun to work with. I know in one of our Q&As in Sonoma, the very first question that was asked was, where did you find that baby? So we just got everything just landed for us in that way. It was great because there was such a buy-in from everyone, I think, into it.
Yeah, there was such a pride I felt there was such a pride in the community that they wanted to come behind us. Do you know what I mean? And I felt that from the start.
You could really feel it watching it, that it felt like kind of just an insight into a community, to be honest. Yeah. And it also, like, as you said there, it was really refreshing to see lovely new faces on the screen as well, and particularly then with Irish language films and the baby. I think there's one scene, I think, where Alan gets pulled over and she is just loving life in the back. She's
patting Barley, I think.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of going, look what she's doing. We were all getting very excited, yeah, because it was just like that kind of thing that obviously you can't direct or ask what just happened.
I know, she just looked like such a dream. Yeah, she dreamed. But I love that the film kind of deals with the themes of loneliness and grief and companionship, and then kind of rejuvenation. And what was kind of, Bríd, what is the most important thing that you would love for audiences to kind of take away from the film, especially being Róise?
Well, an enjoyment of the film for a start, you know, and that sort of uplifting feeling. And what surprised me is a lot of people that have texted me and stuff said, oh, we were in tears. You know, I you know, when you're playing it and when you're shooting it, I was surprised by that. So it's all the emotions are there, and I'm very proud of that, you know.
Absolutely. The one scene that I loved and definitely shed a tear was the scene with Róise and Maura, I think it is, in the nursing home, and how Frank was able to give that moment to them for her kind of her memory coming back, and then kind of that being spurred then so many other different things that Frank was able to give, like the confidence to Mikey with the hurling and it just really kind of, you know, it's all of those really valuable things that, you know, well, I'm such a dog lover, so I just think they're fantastic. They're a very vital part of any kind of community or family. But I also want to talk about Mikey. I just think he was I could just watch him all day. He was so gorgeous to work with. What was that like, or to watch? So what was that like, working with such a young talent, Bríd?
Oh, he was fantastic. He was so focused you know, because he was like, what? He was 14, wasn't he, Rachael, Peter?
12, I think.
Younger, I think.
Yeah, younger. I think 12. I think we did it, yeah.
12, yeah. But he was just so focused, and it's very rare you get that in a 12-year-old, because, as you know, it's long days. You're shooting out of focus. You're sitting around, and he was just fantastic, and he gave me so much on screen. He was fantastic, and we saw him recently at the Dublin Film Festival, and he's taller than I am now. You know, but he certainly has a future if he wants to go down that road.
Amazing. And one thing also that I wanted to ask about is just the location is just absolutely stunning. And for a film I found as well, it's not kind of majorly dialogue heavy, which I also really loved, because you've got so many glances and, you know, things being said without necessarily saying anything, but then also the incredible landscape shots that you had. So Peter, where did you where was the location? Where did you film, and then how long did the shooting take?
Well, we filmed it around Onryan and Shanafobal. I kind of the Gaeilge just past Dungarvan, basically down in Waterford. We had looked around a lot of different places, one of the main things that drew us there was hurling. Hurling was always going to be hurling. Hurling was in the script. And that kind of reduces the places you can go to, because not every county has it. And we wanted to cast locally, so we didn't want to have to necessarily bring the kids. Obviously are the ones who all hurl, so we didn't want to have to bring them in from other areas, or we didn't want to have to go to an area. The one thing we knew we couldn't do was kind of coach kids up to be hurlers. They either had to be hurlers or they couldn't be in the movie, because it's such, you know, that skill that they have from playing it for hours and hours. We wanted to look natural and beautiful, and interestingly, again, that plays very well in America, where it's a sport people don't know, but it's such, even played by 12-year-olds, you know, you watch them and you go, my God, they've such skill level, and it's an impressive sport to see played at any level. So that was a big part of it. And then we went down them, and Stephen Ridge went down, and you just see kids everywhere with the hurleys, and then you actually go, well, this is a beautiful part of the world. It's not as known as, you know, the areas of Kerry or Connemara or Donegal, which are really beautiful, rugged places. Obviously, this is a little bit more pastoral and a little bit more kind of, I guess, East Coast. And that felt nice and different, actually. And we got quite excited about that it could have sort of a different feel, a different look, to maybe what people expect from a film shot in a Gaeltacht area. So that really was what drew us there.
Definitely, because you always kind of think, you know, like that when it's kind of more of a rural setting, you know, someone's neighbors are half an hour down the road, you know, and you get that kind of isolated feeling. Whereas this was really, like, as we were chatting about, the community feel from the get-go, which I just think was so gorgeous. And then we also have our running storyline of poor El Dunca as well, who's another person who I think is suffering from loneliness in a different way, which I think is also really important to show. And he may not go about things really in the right way, but I think you can sympathize with them nonetheless. But I also just loved how he basically paid €50 to ask out Róise's son if he could ask out his mom. So what was it like, kind of, was it important to kind of want to show all of these different insight into all of these different kind of people's lives, obviously with the overarching of Róise and Frank, but then also obviously you have Alan with the new baby and him working really hard in the surgery. And I just think it was really great having the glimpses into everyone's lives. What was that like, kind of elevating all of those, Rachael?
Well, I kind of love that richness. I mean, I kind of, you know, when I watch films, I kind of give that kind of interior life when I'm looking at even, you know, the person in the shop. I'm thinking, oh, there she is again now, and now she's really nice and she's brought him. I love the threading through of characters in real, because it gives me a sense of the reality of the community, I suppose. So we did make an effort to try and give each person, even if they were only on for a fleeting scene or two, but we gave them each their humanity, I suppose, and I think you're being nice about Donncha there.
Yeah.
He does a very bad thing, but he does come from a place of, he's not a monster. He's a man who loves music. He's the local choir master. Sometimes, you know, your intentions can be okay, but your actions can be very wrong. So I suppose we were trying to give that richness, so that the people in Róise's community all have their own humanity and lives. When you're writing a script, you're always kind of a little bit worried maybe that you're writing too many people with too many lives and overpopulating. But I think it really worked in this film, I think, because there were great performances, because we did, you know, great performances did help give all that humanity to each person. And I think I was really happy with the way that the whole community came to life. I think that was a really important thing to do, to achieve.
Definitely. And I think as well, I love how you show how sometimes it can get to a certain stage in your life when you're older and you may find yourself stuck in a rut, or maybe in a mundane routine, or I guess, you know, obviously in Róise's case, she's dealing with grief in different ways. So I don't know, Bríd, would you have any kind of, I think, I love the aspect of Donncha actually getting her out and getting her into the choir. So we'll give him that. But do you have any kind of tips for people who, like, just having stepped into Róise's shoes, tips for people who may find themselves in kind of that way of kind of, you know, their life has changed, their kids might have moved on, and now they kind of have their own lives back again and they kind of don't know where to go from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing that Róise did. She sort of locked herself in. She locked herself away from the community. And if I would say anything, just open, just try and open, just ever so slowly open out, listen, take encouragement, take, you know, a coffee or a chat or something. And as we see in the film, as she starts to kind of open out and come back to the choir, and that relationship with her son, you know, that was a fractured relationship, and the little with the baby, you know. So it's yeah, try and open the heart slowly, but try and do it.
Definitely. And I wanted to ask as well, Peter, did you guys come across, because I know it was completed during lockdown, but you guys held off on releasing it, which I think was actually really lovely, because then you got to actually experience it with audiences. But before we kind of chat about what that was like, did you guys come across any challenges throughout making the film that you'll kind of learn from and bring into your next project?
Obviously not lockdown ones, because we shot pre-lockdown. So I guess the challenges are always the same. It's how do you figure out to write something that you'll get enough money to have enough time to shoot. And we're not like, we, you know, I mean, you know, we've constantly got producers going, could you not lose a couple of people? We've got 46 speaking parts. I mean, we did it on trailers as well, and we love it. Because actually it's a bit of a balance, because I do think what you get from it is a sort of slightly elevated product, because it's got lots of people, it's got a richness. You know, there are great films that are 4 people and all of that there, you know, that, but it's not what we ever end up writing. We always sort of, it grows and it's got these cameos and small parts, but we love that. But obviously it's a huge challenge. I mean, I don't think we'll ever learn. I think the thing is, you know, I look at what we're writing now and it's like, okay, there we go again.
I was about to go, please
parts.
don't tell me if we've learned anything.
Oh, no, we haven't. We haven't learned. I think what we learned is it is doable. There's great. Actually,
and it works.
And you can get great kind of, you know, if you give small parts that, you know, you can get performances from really good, you know, keen amateur actors, which we found down there, or, you know, day players. It's a huge challenge for your first AD who's got to figure out. I mean, our first AD had a terrible time. She was great, but it was trying to figure out, you know, some of the days were absolutely, in terms of page numbers that we were shooting, not every day, obviously, but some of the days were massive, just in terms of what we had to get through, because we have a lot of not only cast but locations. You know, we're all over the place shooting in different locations. I mean, trying to get into, we filmed in a great vet surgery just outside Dungarvan. They were brilliant. They let us in, but it was like after they were finished working. So we're all there ready to go at, I think, 4 o'clock or something, and we've got to get out there by 10. Like, it's really, and a lot of, you know, 2 big scenes happening in there. So those kind of days, and I know for and you'd certainly agree with this, I think, Bríd, there was times when it felt a bit like, can we not have another go at that? Can we not try a little bit? Can we not nuance it a bit? And so that's not ideal. You want to feel like you can throw away takes, or you can try different options. And there were times when it felt a bit like, we've just got to move on to get coverage, or we're not going to make our day. But, you know, do you learn anything from that other than try and get more money? Money is time. You know, we went into it thinking, because it was our second movie, we get 6 weeks, and then that was gone completely straight away. And then I remember saying to Kuan, our producer, will we get 5? And he said, I don't think so. And we did it in 20 days in the end, you know. So you just lose days, you know, and money equals time. And that's the big thing if you can get it. But, you know, 1.2 million, and you're not filming in Dublin, you're filming on location, it all ratchets up, and it all builds up, and I don't know what you can do about that.
More money. Give these guys more money.
More money. But it's funny, because you actually are in a situation where, you know, the more money is a big leap. You need a big leap for it to actually make that much a difference. If you got an extra 100,000, you wouldn't see it. And I'm not even sure you get an extra day. You know, that's the thing.
And it's the things that get sacrificed, you know, the things that are easy to cut are rehearsals and things that you would really love to have, and they get cut. So it is always time, and it puts pressure, and you're really relying on your actors being just amazingly brilliant and your production designer having everything ready to go, and, you know, all of that. It is the time pressure is, I think, but I don't know any filmmaker who says, "Oh, I had loads of time on that. Actually, took a day off." It's always time, I think.
Definitely, yeah. The time pressure, I think, always kind of is everyone's enemy in that sense.
Yeah.
Go on,
You have, as actors, you have to come prepared, but going into the project, we've got 4 weeks to shoot this. We've got a lot to do. So in that way, there was a lot of talking, myself and Lorcan and Killian and stuff. We do a lot of rehearsals even before, the night before or something, all of that sort of thing. But for actors, you've got to be able to, maybe hit it in one take if you're up against time.
And I think it's such because Bríd, you do theatre as well, and there's just so many pros and cons with both. I think they're such a different craft in a way, because with the theatre you get to rehearse and then you do it and then it's just finished, whereas then with film you mightn't get to rehearse, but then you do it and then you don't see it for ages, but then it kind of can live on for ages. So it's such a minefield, two of them, balancing the two of them.
But one kind of feeds into the other, especially if you're up against time. If you're used to being on the stage and go, I've got to hit this because I can't go back and do it. I don't have the luxury of another take. So if you find that you're, okay, this scene is not going the way it should be going, you click in and you do it. So in that way, that's an advantage to you as you're going into, say, a really short film shoot. Yeah.
Well done. It really is. It's just such a gorgeous film, and I encourage everyone to go and see it. It's just such a feel-good film. I feel like you come out from the cinema and you just feel like you've had a cup of tea and a big chat in your nana's, and it's just so gorgeous. So I usually love to ask my guests what if they have a favorite Irish film, or if they have a film. I never like to say favorite film, but just a film maybe that's impacted their life in some sort of way. It could be inspirational, or it could be, traumatization, or it could be just one that you just always find yourselves going back to. So Peter, I'll start with you. Do you have anyone in mind?
Well, favorite Irish film is a tricky one because there's so many really, really great ones. I think I Went Down was always the one that's always stuck in my head as one I've really enjoyed. And it's not something, I haven't seen it that many times since it was out in cinemas. I obviously went to see it in cinemas, and it was filmed, kind of quite a bit of it was filmed around where I grew up in Kildare. So I loved seeing kind of the bog road outside Werthangen and stuff on it. And I just loved it because it was fresh and it was fun and it felt a bit different. And it's still, I think it really stands the test of time. And I mean, I love so many Irish films, but it's one that always, I think just when it came out and the way I saw it, I always really, really loved. And in terms of other ones, it was funny. I had to tell some similar story at Port Townsend. Really, so I was thinking of film that had influenced me, and then I realized probably it was with Nail and I, because I had started out doing engineering in Trinity, and I bunked off to go to see With Nail and I on the screen instead of going to like an organic chemistry lecture. And I realized I need to get out of Trinity. I need to get out of engineering. So I dropped out of engineering quite soon after. I said, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to make movies. So it's a film I adore, obviously, as well. But I always think it had a particular impact on my life.
Definitely a bit of a turning point there, I think. And Rachael, what about yourself?
I am a huge fan of In the Name of the Father. It's a film I would watch again and again. Absolutely no problem. I love the story. I love the performances. It's just a film that I just get something out of every time I watch. So while there's lots of Irish films to pick from, personally, that's one that sticks with me. And in terms of favorite film, I suppose it's more kind of a genre. So I really love those Capra type films, and you're kind of maybe a bit of Roche and Frank. Maybe there's a bit of what they call Capricorn sneaking in, that kind of slightly sentimental feeling. But films like It's a Wonderful Life or that's the style of movie that if I'm sitting at home and I just want to watch something, I will put on something of that.
Yeah, I always call those kind of films the kind of smile cry films, and you just can't help yourself. You're smiling and crying at the same time.
And you're
a lot going on. You're
slightly being manipulated, but it's okay. Yeah.
Definitely. And Bríd, what about you?
Poitín had a huge influence on me. Bob Quinn, back in the day with Neil Tobin and Donald McCann and Cyril Cusack. And these were actors that we weren't used to seeing filming in the Irish language. But it shows you, do you know what I mean, what you can do. And I always found Bob Quinn to be a groundbreaker, and we're looking at the great juggernaut, if that's the word, of Irish films now. But the ground was laid by him, and lots of others. And I suppose films and stuff, I'd look at actors, and Gina Rowlands is a great. I'm a great fan of her work, and anything that she does.
Definitely. Yeah. I love making notes as well about what everyone says, so it can add to my list. That's fantastic. Thank you all so much, and congratulations again on a gorgeous film. It's in cinemas now, so if you haven't seen it yet, I urge you to go and see this gorgeous feel-good film. So thank you all so much for joining me, and we will see you very, very soon at Irish Film London. Looking forward to it, and thanks again.
Thanks,
Niamh. So much, Niamh.
And that's it for this week's interview. Thank you all so much for listening. We hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you to Culture Ireland and the Irish Emigrant Support Programme. Myself and Jerry will be back in a fortnight with a brand new interview. See you then.